Welcome back, everybody. Well, it's a good day. It's a nice day, except for that cloud right there coming at me. But it's a nice day if I look this way, to be outside, do a little grinding, do a little painting. So yes, I want to get this seat ready. Found the covers that I'm going to buy. They're going to be just black, and yeah, there's no way I can make them for as cheap as I can get them. The only thing I got to do is I got to buy the foam that I want to put in behind here. So the backing here gets no foam, of course. This is the back of the seat. The other side on the seat cover, got to find what I want. I don't know what's common, if it's 1.5 inch, 2 inch, whatever it is. Got to find that for the back. Also got to get some for the bottom half as well too, and get it ready, get it cleaned apart. But I'm kind of working kind of quick here. We're gonna concentrate on this and say, yeah, look at that, it's a great day. We're not gonna look at this because it is pouring rain just on the other side of my neighbor's house here, right across, and it's just stretching right over top of me. It's coming over and it's just getting blacker. So I'm sure some of you are wondering, Paul, why are you working on this when you have this? Well, that's because I need this for this. The only thing stopped me from driving this car, other than the power steering return line and the last little bit of stuff I need, which will be here Monday, the only thing that stopped me from hitting the road with this thing is brakes. The second I got brakes through this car, I'm throwing a seat in and it's getting a drive. Just like this. I'm going to ratchet strap the doors closed. She's going to be the best air conditioned, flow-through air conditioning you ever saw. And this sucker is getting a test drive. No ifs, ands, or buts. So, seats need to be in there. I'll sit on a milk crate, but I'd rather have something maybe a little more permanently attached to the floor, just in case I go flying in the back. I'll end up all the way back there in the trunk, 20 feet away from the pedals. But yes, we're gonna get the seat, get it done, get them coated. I don't know if it would or not, but I'm just putting the rust primer on here, and I'm going to hit them with the black just to make sure I don't get any bleed through by chance. Any of that rust bleeding through the upholstery. We'll get a seat installed, get our power steering and stuff hooked up, but most of all, these brakes. Really got to get on these brakes. So I got a few odds and ends. Hopefully everything I need to get the power steering working in this car. Now, one thing I want to do, though, is actually the only fluid in this vehicle that doesn't show an amount is the power steering. All it says is fill it to the bottom of the fill neck. That is it. It doesn't tell me how much goes in there, how much the pump holds, or whatever. I got 2 liters. I don't know if that's enough or not, but what I want to do is I want to put 1 liter through it and pump it back out. So my thought is, we'll fill the reservoir. I got my air drill, my right angle drill, so I can fit in there. And I wrapped a ball of tape around the end of it. And I'm going to see if I can get that right down in between here. Get it on into this pulley. Make sure it's going the right way, which I believe is this way, yes. Get it going this way. And hopefully you get enough pressure I can push it through, because there is relief, or not really a relief, it's a back pressure valve right here on the top of this pump. And I'm not sure, I think it's only 10 psi. I think that's all it is. I think it's just enough to stop this from leaking back. I could be wrong on that, but the book wasn't very specific on the setting of it. But what I'm going to do, like I said, we got this tightened up. We get my reservoir line on. I'm going to put it the other end in a bucket, just an old oil bucket. And I'm going to start turning that over with my drill to see if I can flush out the last bit of fluid that's in here, because this pump is full. The line is empty, of course. Pump is cleaned out. It's just the actual body itself that has the, whatever, it could be 60-year-old fluid. I don't know. Maybe they never changed it. It's at least 40 years old. That's how long the car was sitting approximately. So I'm going to try to push that out, get a little bit to come back through the hose into a bucket. And once I get, we'll see what it looks like. And then we'll top it up. And then hopefully we can, hopefully I can start this thing, get her turning. We'll see if the power steering works. And just kind of like that. It'd be real awesome if this thing doesn't leak. And you know what, actually, I think I'm gonna go get myself, whoa. Oh, she only takes about 2/3 of a liter to fill that up. But you know what, I'm gonna go get my pan. Just in case. All right, got my pan down there. Got a towel underneath the pump, just in case. Now I just turned this by hand, just a quick second to see what's gonna happen. So I thought I'd jump in here quick and get the camera because you see the level just by turning by hand. Look how fast it's going down. That's quite the displacement on that pump. I'm surprised how fast that went. Oh, and I can feel it. It's building pressure in there too. All right, let's top that back up. All right, got my belt on. And also remembered my little rubber spacer down there. That was good. Now, we're going to disregard what I said I was going to do. I was going to start it up with the hose in that bucket and then give it a little turn each way just to flush it out. I highly underestimated how fast the fluid is coming out of this hose for the return. If I was to start it up now, I don't think I would make it from starting it up to coming out here and grabbing that line, or even trying to open it up to put more fluid in before that thing is dry. It comes out way faster than I thought. No pressure, just bypasses quickly. So I ran it through by hand a little more, and I got a full liter and a bit gone through it. So it's definitely more than the capacity of the steering box itself down there. Now I just come out and I cleaned out the little filter. There's a little screen here. It had a couple little chunkies on the inside, nothing big, but there's no holes in it. It's all sealed up good. So that just sits right down in there. Now I'm gonna cut my line here. I'm gonna put it on, clamp that down. Now the pulley system here, this is all original. Nothing has changed, no spaces have changed. This is the exact distance on the pump. But man, you're lucky. There's not even an eighth of a distance in space between this belt and the edge of that pulley. And then when it goes underneath there, it's about an eighth. That's about the max that it clears this with. So any slap, I'm sure she's going to be touching. Like, this is definitely going to slap. That's just the way it is. But it's slowly going to touch it and going to wear the black on here. And it's probably going to make a nice little black ring around there that really there's not much I can do about. And they are as is. That is the way it is from factory. They're just so tight. I don't know why they had to go so tight on that. There's so much room here. They could have put that pulley out even a 1/4 inch. The second half of the pulley, same's up here, right? Brought it out and made lots of room. But whatever, we're rolling original. So on, front end up, starter up. We'll give her a little turn, see what happens. There we go. This will be a good view. You can see the tire turning. You can see the epicness if the belts fly off. And if the hose blows and squirts all its juice out the top, you'll be able to see that as well too. Hopefully it don't. But you know what? At least I'll get it on camera if it happens. So yeah, we'll settle on how long it's gonna run. Give a couple pumps, flash her up, see what happens. All right, all primed, ready to go again. I hope. Come on, it's almost there. there we go. That's another big thing off the list. The no whine in the pump. The belts are straight. They are waving up and down a little bit, just like I thought. And they just, can you see the black line? Just barely are flapping and touching right where the radiuses starts to come up. Not a big deal. Give it 100 miles and that'll probably be gone. It didn't touch the side of the pulley that I thought it would up here. But yes, no leaks, no whine. One finger just barely turning that wheel. No problem at all. I end up adding probably about another, I don't know, what is that? Probably another 250 milliliters in there. Not a whole lot. Just enough to top it up. But I am right at the bottom of the neck, just like it says. Now, just like everything else, once we get a good run on it and get some good heat in here, then we'll be going back through and checking everything else again. But that's awesome. That's just another thing down. All right, here we are. So, got my ground on and good to the tank and of course to the frame. And I got my meter down here, of course. And I checked between my two. Then I also went from the gauge itself, the metal grounding plate on the gauge, to the tank, to the frame, and everything is good there. So, good ground to the tank. Now we don't have to worry about blowing ourselves up when we stick a nozzle in there and try to fill her. Now I got my signal wire here as well too. This was originally blue. I went with black under the car, just so if someone looks through the wheel well, you just don't notice it as much. I put a little piece of rubber around the piece of the fuel line, right around the bolt there, or sorry, the cable there, and I put a little zip tie on it to hold it. Use a piece of rubber so it doesn't chafe. And then of course it goes up there and there's these grommets. What do you call those things? Those plastic grommets everywhere that you can poke things through so you don't have leaks, so like a rubber or something. So there we go, get those on. Now, also when I was down here, I just realized, if we go, go over here, I forgot to put my bump stop on for my rear end, my rear diff. Just got a couple bolts here. I'm gonna have to go find that because I didn't see it on my bench and I thought it was already on. There we go. That's the thing right there that I gotta put on top. I actually had it inside the car. Oh, didn't even think about it. Forgot all about it. So we'll get that installed in there, and just be another thing, making it closer to the end. And I tell you, man, I'm getting pretty anxious. Getting pretty anxious to get this thing test driven on the road, and making sure that everything really works. The transmission, I've been doing a little research here on adjusting the transmission bands, the forward band. Once I start getting this thing rolling, I just went by spec by the book, right? It's a torque rating of how tight the band grabs onto the drum, the clutch drum. So that's all I went with originally. But there's definitely going to be some adjustment on that once we start getting it rolling. And yes, that's what I've been doing a little bit of research on to make sure I get that correct. I don't want to be messing that up. Don't need to be burning transmission out of this thing right off the bat. But this is gonna require two hands. All right. Now that we have our ground on and my pickup wire attached, got my light on here because I'm going to get a broomstick. You see, there's the pickup right there. There it is. I'm going to get a broomstick and I'm going to lift that up and I'm going to run a jumper wire up to the dash, just temporary. But I want to know, is that working before I fill that whole tank up with fuel? Because it would be a real bugger to dump 5-10 gallons in there and find that thing don't work. It'd be way easier to do it now. So that's what we're going to do. Going to get a jumper wire and just temporary go from the back here up to the blue signal wire, put some power to the dash, and see what happens with the gauge. All right, that's where you're gonna be. Okay, now put some power to the car. Power's on. Let me turn the ignition on now. Let's see, does that do anything? Oh, what? Well, you know what? It moved, and that actually might be correct, because when I installed this, I noticed that the float is sitting on the bottom of the tank. So empty, theoretically, is 1/8 of a tank. I know it looks this is the angle that you're looking at. You're actually on quite an angle, and I tried to adjust the camera to compensate for it. But if I look dead on, it's 1/8 of a tank. So, I think it's getting higher. It is, it's creeping up. Well, I'll tell you what. I'm gonna go move it. Try to get a stick in there and move it and see if it does change. And then we'll have to see about trying to get this thing set to 0. Okay. So you see the white ball in the front, that's the float. And what you see right behind it, that is the pickup. That's the little, I guess, the pre-strainer. It is most definitely sitting flat on the bottom of the tank. So that would be empty. I don't know if it'd even pick anything up if it was that low. But my problem is my float needs to go down further. Now, how do I do this? Because if I could bend the tube. I can, it's easy to pull that thing out of there. I could bend the tube to adjust where the float is. So how can I say this? The body of it, it's hard. Okay, there it is there. See how long that stock is going up? Oops. Let's get in the way there. Come on. Yeah. Anyway, there, okay. Right at the top there. You can see where the line goes up and goes out of the tank. If I bend that up, that'll bring the filter, the strainer, off the bottom of the tank and allow that float to drop a little lower. Now, I don't know how thin that thing is or how thick it is. If I kink it, I'm pooched. That'd be the end of it. But there's no other way to do it. It's indexed into the tank. It only fits in one way. So it's not like I can turn it or anything like that. There's a little notch, actually a notch in it, that makes that pickup only go in one spot. But something needs to be done. Because now that it's just slow, but it does set out at 1/4 of a tank. That's what it shows it has in there. So we'll give it a couple tries here. I'm going to get under there, take off my wire, pull out my sensor or my pickup, get it out of the tank, and then see if I can just tweak that up just a little bit. All right, that was really easy to get out. That was nice. But, so let me show you the problem. First things first. So, going by just trying to look at the video through that little hole there. Basically, the pickup filter is sitting like that. It's almost flat on the bottom of the tank. Now, you don't really want that. You don't want to be pulling that last 1/2 inch or so off the bottom of your tank. But the way it sits in there, on the bottom, there's the float. Well, I lift this up, there's 0. There is quite a bit of movement there. Now, it's probably going past 0, which is fine. But inside the tank, I would like to have my pickup above the floor just a bit, so any water or any little crap that's there, it's not sucking it right off the bottom. I'd like to have this up a little bit. Now, there's not really any way to do that except to bend this somewhere here to pull that whole thing up. That's the only way to do it. I'm gonna have to try to pull it to try to bend it gently. I don't know if I can set it in a vise, but this tube don't look very thick. But I do have to make it so that on this angle, that pickup is actually up higher off the bottom of the tank, which will make that float go closer to the bottom. All right, so there we are. You can definitely see the pickup is higher. It's not even touching the bottom of the tank now. It's easier to see without looking through the camera, but I figure I'm about a half inch, maybe 3/4 inch above the bottom of the tank. So the little floaty right this side is now down lower. So I bent it so the whole body's up. But let's go turn the key on. I actually have the key on. I left it on. And where are we at now? We are right on empty. Right where we need to be. Okay, you know what? I'm going to go back to it with my stick. I'm going to raise it all the way to the top so it goes to full. and we'll see where that rests when it comes back down. Didn't know if I'd get back up here fast enough. I just let it drop. So let's see what happens. Going back down. Just let it drop onto the bottom of the tank. Man, it's slow at the very bottom. It's still going. It's slow going, but it's still going. There we go. You know what? That's pretty close. Well, it's depending on the angle you look at. Looks like it's up. If you're sitting actually in this here would be right in line with the steering column, looking to the side, just that hair, and it's sitting right on E. I call that a win. I call that perfect. Now, just got to get under there, tighten that thing up without twisting it too much, though it is indexed, and get that signal back wire back on for good. Time to address the steering wheel. This is something I've been watching some videos on for a while here, and this is pretty common. Just about any old vehicle, they dry up, I guess, and they shrink because there's no pieces missing, but it is shrunk and cracked, pulled open, and it looks kind of like hell. And definitely not a new one available. And used ones in similar condition, over 150 bucks, almost $200. So we're going to attempt to fix what we got here. Now, I've watched quite a few videos of guys repairing these, and basically all they're doing is filling them with epoxy. Depending on where they live, where their expertise of building is where the different epoxies come into play. Some say go hard, some say go soft, some say flexible, some say use ones that are good for plastic. Well, all of that I took into account, and being up here in Canada, we need to go from about minus 40 to a plus 40 Celsius. Well, they don't make one that goes minus 40. But in my experience, when it comes to epoxy, they're definitely all different. And the regular epoxies that are good for plastic, there's a lot of plastics that it doesn't stick to. This stuff, I have no idea what this is. It's hard, like rock hard, yet if you push on it with a screwdriver, you can make a dent in it. So I'm not quite sure what kind of plastic that they use on these. And what I found in the past is the marine grade epoxies tend to be a little more flexible, and they stick to more plastics, more different types of plastic. Now, they all say, compatible plastic and stuff, but when you get the marine grade ones, they get rid of like wood out of the description. They get rid of like all metals out of the description. They start going towards more plastics. And I have found that they've stuck really well and stuck better. They still need a surface, so you still got to rough it up a little bit, which is what we're going to do. We're going to get a file in here and try to open these up a little bit, clean them up a little more. I don't want to go too deep. Some guys that I watched on the videos were using like die grinder bits and really grooving in there. I don't know if I got to go that far. I might have to. You never know. But we're going to open these up a little more, clean them up, make sure there's nothing flaky inside. It's definitely dry. That's not an issue. Mix up some epoxy. We're going to start filling it in. Got some tape here, and I also got some saran wrap, little strips. That's what I'm going to use to wrap around it. Mostly this saran wrap because I'm hoping that it won't stick to it. The tape, I'm going to have goo stuck to it. And when I go to sand, that's going to be a problem. And I want to be able to get it so I can get most of it off and it's as smooth as it can be. Well, I filed out three spots. I did one large one really skinny one, and one not so bad. Small on one side, big hole in the other. And it definitely likes to run a little bit. So I just wrapped it up in the saran wrap, and it's going to be, for sure, going to be probably a couple layers on there. But I'm not going to go much further until I know how this is actually going to, I can cut it off, the goopy stuff, like the lumps, or how it sands. So I'm going to let this sit for about a half hour, 40 minutes, and see what happens. We'll do multiple videos today so you can kind of see how this is going. I don't know if this is the right way. I don't know what people are going to think about this, but we're going to give it a try to see if we can save this thing. Well, she is now dry. It's actually really good. To the feel, it feels like it's been dried. And this stuff is, man, does it get hard. But it is somewhat pliable. It's actually enough that I can cut the big lumps off with my knife. I can drag along the edge and just catch an edge, and I can peel off the big lumps. Now it's definitely sunk down into the grooves, which is good. It filled that gap, so it's going to need another layer. But I'm going to take some time here, go with the knife first, and get off all the big bumps and the high edges, especially where I had to fill this in like so much. It kind of oozed out around it a little bit. So I'm going to cut that back, smooth up a little, and then we'll see how we're looking. So yes, I do believe this is going to work well. A little hard on the fingers and the thumbs, but with a little sanding, it's smoothing out pretty good. Like I said, there's going to be a little bit of a gap or a little bit of a low spot. I'm going to have to put some more in, some more there. This one definitely needs some, and also up here as well too. Oh, I got a little chunk taken out of there from some point. But we'll fill them all in the best we can. It doesn't need to be absolutely perfect, but we'll get it close. But anyway, that's it. I'm going to play around with this. And this is definitely going to be an on and off thing because it takes so long for that stuff to dry. Now, as for these brake boosters, I tell you, they ain't cheap. But if I suck on this tube, and yeah, I'm sure the puns are coming, I can get this to move in and out quite easily. And if I push it by hand, the air forces out really good as well too. So I'm going to open this up. And I'm going to see if the diaphragm in there got any cracks in it or if there's any issues going on, and see what the possibility is of reusing that. Alright, so holding that thing together was a ton of screws. And a C-clip that was holding the boot to the back. So we get this would be the back side. Get the back side off. And here we are on the inside now. The rubber, it's like brand new. It even smells like an inner tube. And it's got like a wax all over it. And there is absolutely not a crack in it at all. This is doing really well. And it is like brand new on the inside. There's another bellows or rubber on the inside that looks good. But there's a ton of corrosion in here. This is the bottom. So obviously the water's been leaking in over time and getting in there. And there's a lot of dust and some chunks down in there. And I'm sure that's not good for the rubber, you know, moving in and out, and also the one down in there. So I'm going to try to get this apart carefully. I'm going to keep going here. If I ruin it, well, unfortunately, I'll have to get a new one. But like I said, this stuff is like brand new. And it's like a wax. It's kind of a weird stuff on there. But looking down inside here, you can see the top half. It protrudes through, and it must have some kind of keeper because there's rubber right here. So something's locking in on the side. So there's two little Phillips set screws here that I'm going to try to get them off without breaking them. Let's see what we can find. All right, it is apart, and it's apart good. Like I said, there's this white wax still over all the rubber. And I'm assuming it's stainless steel inside here because this is all good. The actual plate itself that holds the diaphragm in, it's good. But you can see the rust here and the corrosion. Like there's piles of it in here. And that's why I want to take this apart, because if I do use this, my worry was these little sharp pieces getting in between the rubber or in the diaphragm here and chafing through and causing some problems. First thing here, there's a little tiny air filter. So this is the locking collar. The rubber comes through this lip here, right here, sits on top of here, and then this locks down into it. But this is on top of it, and what this is a little tiny air filter. That was the little air filter that was down in there, just to keep, I guess, the bugs and the dirt out. It's falling apart. It's actually turned to dust. This little tiny piece of foam is turned to dust. So I'm sure it's pretty easy to find. And then that goes on top. But the more pressing issue, remember the two screws that I said, as long as we don't break them? Well, yeah, both of them. Like, I didn't even put any force on them. Just a quick little turn, and they broke right off. So that kind of sucks. They're countersunk because this plate has to fit flush against the what do you call this thing? The brake cylinder. But we are into a lot of meat. It's probably, it's over a 1/4 inch thick, maybe bigger. So I think I can drill those out, get rid of them almost completely. So unfortunately, I'm going to It's going to be hard to drill those out, but I'm going to just get rid of them completely. And I'll tap just a little bigger hole for a machine screw. Something that still has a nice little tapered head. And then I think we'll be able to reuse it. Have I told you how much I love that little blaster? For as cheap as it was, and even if you bought it new, just the Princess Auto Special, that is a nice little unit. But, got all my parts cleaned up nice and perfect. All the aluminum ones. This thing cleaned up real nice. Cleaned up perfect. There's a little bit of a pitting there on the side. That's right where everything was kind of touching the metal. Now, I know this car is 1964, but you know, they had spaceships, they had rockets, and they were sending things to the moon and out in space and that. And I can't believe they didn't have something better than like things like this, like a bare metal plate. I don't know if there was ever any paint on that, because where it was sitting tight, it's perfectly bare steel. And that's just bare steel against that aluminum, and the pits that it made are right in there. Like, I had to peel this off. I'm gonna put the hand sander on this to clean up a little better, and I'll put a little coat, even if it's just a coat of primer, something to stop that metal to aluminum touch. And this part, inside, turned out good. Of course, it's all corroded out here along the lip where it sits into the groove on the aluminum. And this side is just, well, I guess it just is what it is. It's just rust. And every single one where these went through is rusting, and I'm wondering if that has something to do with heat. That when they got spot welded these on or whatever, I wonder if it had to do with the heat, because every one has gone corroded. And of course, this is I think this was the top, and that's kind of pouring down in there and making a nice little mess. I have brake stuff. Now, yesterday I mentioned about how, hey, tomorrow all my brake stuff's coming in. Well, it's a little optimistic to think that an entire order that I put through for a 1964 vehicle is coming in at one time. But half came today. Looks like half is going to be here tomorrow. But pretty excited to start getting some stuff. I got to just threw together a small little bolt kit for my wheel cylinders. Did that all in grade 8 components. But I'm excited to get into this. Let's get one of these open here. Definitely excited to get into brake cylinders and whatnot. Here's the first one. This is a rear. So 2 rears are identical. They have the line coming straight out the back of the backing plate. So that makes that go on good. Then the other ones you can't mix them up. They're pretty idiot proof, I hope. But they are different. But if we take this one apart, show you the rear ones. You see your bleed nipple and your line are straight off the back. Front ones go forward. They're kind of on a V of 45. And this is the important part here. This tells you if it's left or right. Now my bolts, I know they go to the top. So this is a right-hand wheel cylinder. And they have a special tube that I was actually surprised I actually found. They are, actually I think it's this one. Let's pull that line out. Now this is the line, this is the flex line for the front wheel cylinders, and this was the part that I was worried about, finding ones that had these long stems that fit down through the backing plate into the cylinder all the way down on an angle, and it gets it out of the way of the ball joint. So it's not going to cut it off when you cut the wheel. It's out of the way. And of course, this end here fits into those funky little clips, which, driving home today, in my mind, it's like, where did they go? And they're the ones that mounted to the frame, and they have a special little C-clip, a keeper, and a funny little bracket that goes on there. And I don't know. I know I got them. I had them here not too long ago. I will find them. I definitely need them, and I don't see them in as an available part in any of the books. So if I don't find them, I'm going to make something, but I'm pretty sure we are good on that. So, and I only got one of those, so I still need the other one of those coming. Then I got, these are, I think this is the rear adjusters, the automatic adjusters for emergency brake. And that, I only got one of those kits as well. Another one coming tomorrow. All 4 spring kits did not show up. You know, that's all your return springs, your brake shoe springs, everything that goes in there. What is this thing? Park brake cable. I see it doesn't say left or right. One's long, one's short. I only got one of those. To get, this is cabin filter for the Ford Focus. Yeah, I know, I own a Ford. And then some brake shoes. And these are, what ones are these? Doesn't say. They look like 2 3/4. If they're 2 3/4 of the back, 3 inches on the front. Let me get a measuring tape. All right, I was a little bit mistaken. I was thinking they went this way, like the backs do, but they actually go this way. So I'm on the left-hand side, not the right-hand side. But yeah, that V in there, that's so the ball joint connects to the, I don't know what you call it, the spindle arm, I guess. You can see it's right in the middle of the hole there. So the V in this makes it so the bleeder's on the back side and that long hose is on the other side. And there's actually not enough room for me to get the hose through here. So it is tight. If I turn the wheel, it's better. But I'll get that on there, then I can hook the hose up. But I've just read a little thing kind of quickly here about this hose, which, I don't know. No, I can't see it being an issue, but it tells me that I have to let the hose sit out for a bit, flat. I have to get them flat, and then I actually work the hose all the way along to get the kinks out of it, and then I can feel something. It's almost like it's a layer of the hose, like not separating, but becoming flexible. And it tells you that you got to put it out for, what is it, a half hour at 15 to 40 degrees Celsius for 30 minutes, then manually flex the hose. Interesting. I never even knew that. Who would have thought that about the hose? But it is slowly coming back. But you're supposed to let it sit there by itself, not doing anything to it. And I'm within my temperature. I'm doing good here. We are almost 20 out in the garage. So yeah, I'm going to let that sit a little longer, flatten itself out, and then I'll manually bend that and see how it goes. Well, got myself a cheap wrench, ground it down, and it is perfect. Yeah. It is. Where do we go here? Okay. Oh. It fits right in there, right dandy, right where it needs to be. Now I can tighten down my... But back to my front brakes, I found my little brackets. And these are the little brackets that fit in those holes on the frame. And of course, the original ones I just cut off the old hoses. But you can see how they fit in. They just pop through, and they got this clip. Though these clips look different than the ones that are popped on there already. So I'll take these apart gently the best I can in case I got to reuse them. But they definitely need some attention. Get the clips off. Get the chunks of road tar or whatever's on there off of here. I'm going to throw those in the blaster and give them a little bit of paint. So it is the next day. It is actually Sunday. So I just got this thing tape all taken off. Looking beautiful and shiny. And I'm going to finish assembling the back here. Got myself my little filter. The other one was turned to dust. And that ends up going right in there. Then we got the locking ring that holds the lip for the inner diaphragm. And then, of course, that's all held together by this plate here that goes on top that holds the filter in. There's where the holes breathe for the filter. And then that goes on. And then, in the end, this is a spacer plate that goes on here. And you'll remember I broke off the screws. Well, I cannot, whatever they are so hard. They're harder than my bit. I tried to punch them to put a dimple in the middle, and it would slide off and hit the aluminum. But really all it does is it helps hold all this together, just so it's holding the filter housing on, the cover and whatnot, until you get the actual master brake cylinder on. So it's not a big deal. I'm going to leave them off. I'm not going to worry about it. And once everything is done, I'll just have to make sure I get everything aligned nice to put it on there, and that'll cover it all up. Just beauty. With those little pieces dry as well too, I now have my Flexline clamps on, holding to the frame. And while I do that, I'm just gonna put a little piece of blue painter's tape, a little masking tape, over the end of that line, just to make sure a piece of crap doesn't fall down in there while I'm working on it before I get my lines done. A little bit of assurance. So yeah. Now I have to find the master bracket that holds the brake booster on. I just got my backing plate just set in there. Two nuts holding it in place on the top. So I just started took the bolts off, a couple odds and ends, the retainer for the inner diaphragm, or I guess bellows, I guess you would call it. It's more like an accordion. And took the filter off and the backing plate there. And the bolts off the back too. We are ready to put it on. Hopefully this goes smooth. Might be an issue with me holding this thing up and trying to get inside the car to put those studs on while I'm holding on here. I'm going to give it a try by myself. I'm having some issues. Might have to bring the wife onto the payroll and get her out here and see if she can help me out. Well, that was a bit of a bugger to get in there by myself, but I did it. And it's in. And I'm glad it fits so good, because that seal that was supposed to be behind it would have been real nice if it was there. Well, back out it comes, I guess. Son of a gun. Brake booster installed. I tell you what, you Mopar guys probably know this, but if you were ever taking a car completely apart, make sure that brake booster goes back in before that dash even thinks about coming inside there. What a time getting the top two bolts in on that booster. There is no room in there. And if there wasn't a dash, I literally could have sat right down and put them right in front of me, no problem. But twisting and contorting to get up in there, whew, it's in. That's good. So I put my cover, my locking plate, my air filter, the air filter cover, and the little backing plate that holds it all together with the bolts. Just kind of set it on there so I don't lose it. Don't need to be losing any more parts. But that looks pretty good in there, nice and shiny. Black looks good, going well with everything. So what I want to do now, I'm going to get the back, whatever you call that, that piece, that cardboard piece that was in there. I'm going to stick that in, see how it fits. I do know my new one's going to be bigger, because I want to seal it up a little better. So here's the original cover that goes back here. Now it fits on good, and it's, other than the big mouse hole or rat hole that chewed through it, it's not bad shape, and it's kind of, everything is there as it was original. But there's a big gap here, like an inch gap on each side. It stops right here on top of the seat lugs, and then of course on the bottom here, there's a little bit of meat there, but it stops shy. So what I want to do, I want to make this new one, it'll fit on like it is here, make it a little bit higher on the top here. I want to conform it better to the edges, and in the bottom I want to come down right to this edge right across here all the way along, because when I put it on, get it fit in, I'm going to seal that. Probably, I might use the same rubberized sealant that's on the floor here or another kind, but I want to completely seal that off. I'm going to close up all these holes that are all around here, and then once speakers go in and the top fan and stuff, I'll close it off the best I can, just so I get the least amount of airflow come from that trunk into the cabin. Again, it's just fumes and noise is the big thing, because this thing's she's gonna howl down the road. But this is just cardboard, and I think I'm gonna just get a piece of masonite, 1/8 inch, should be fine, and I'll be able to, like I said, I'll be able to trace this out, but then gauge how much bigger I want around it, and then add that to it, cut it out with the jigsaw or whatever. We'll rubberize coat it, and then we'll slap it in. Now I'm going to turn my attention to the rear defrost fan, or defog fan. This is something I got to get in before I seal that back off, so I'm not crawling all the way through the trunk trying to reach up around there. And also before I put the back, I guess, valance on. So I tested this all out before, and everything was working before. So we're just gonna give it another little check up here. Some power to her. Oh, most nest. But, uh-oh. She does work. Oh, she's a little squeaky, but it is working. That's okay. At least I know it has a chance. Remember, everything on Duchesne's Corner has a second chance. So, I'm gonna pull that motor off, get the fan off, and get this thing blasted up, cleaned up. And I don't know. Nah, it's one of those welded motors again. The bottom plate is welded to it, and of course it's riveted, so I can't really get in there. So we'll get her spinning extra fast. Oh, and wires are cracked right there. Might have to try to get a new wire. Look at that bare. Oh, they're not cracked. Those are teeth marks. They're chewed right through. So I'll have to get a nice wire on there, butt connected on. I need a new one anyway. This stuff is hard as a rock. But I'll get a new connector on there, and then I'll use a set of it's just a simple connector in the back. I'll use a bullet connector to join us together onto the main harness. But let's see if we can get to the part and clean it up. Well, it's been about half hour. I'll be honest with you, things are less than optimal. That is not moving. Nothing I can do. I even put heat on that and try to heat up that outside hub. I can't get it to move. I can't get anything in between here, really. This cage is so flimsy. I worry about destroying it. So I'm gonna give it the night. Throw on some liquid wrench, get it on the top here. Also get it down inside there a bit, the best I can, so I can get some penetration in there. Penetration. But yeah, we're gonna try to get this up. I want to try to save it. You know, it's one of those things like I don't have to have it, but it was there. Oh. It was there at one time, so why can't I have it again? But I think I'm going to have to let that sit for the night, let that soak in there, see if it'll loosen that up. Now, another thing I'm not even sure of as well, I don't know if this hub is separate from the cage. It may be pressed onto it. There's like a recessed bump down there. I don't know if you can see it or not. So I don't know. These two halves might be one. They might be soldered together or pressed together or something. So I got to be careful how I turn this. And I tried setting this in the vise. You can't. Any pressure on it flattens it out. I put a screwdriver in it flattens it out. So I think that the best thing to do is we'll let it sit overnight, let that soak in, see if it'll loosen up. Like I said, the motor turns. It's just you can feel the resistance. It doesn't keep spinning. So that thing is just going to get hot. Probably catch on fire or burn something up if I do keep it going. But we'll let that sit, I guess. I think we'll call that an evening. All right. Well, with a little bit of frustration and aggression, I got that fan off. Now it's she's seen better days. She's a little oblong. It's a good thing that the hole in here is a lot bigger than it needs to be, because yeah, I had to get a little aggressive with her. She's a little bent out of shape, but I think it can be fixed. And I was right, that little hub is spot welded or soldered to the bottom of this thing. So the time I took trying to peel that out of there, well, that wasn't doing it much good either. But it is a part. Now though, in doing that, the motor still turns, but it's a little more stiffer than it was. So I'm hoping I didn't damage it too much banging on it. I had to use the die grinder. I got it off so far, just below the surface. I had to put it back on and use a die grinder to clean the little end off because I mushroomed it a little bit on the corner. But it is off anyway. So gonna see if I can pull this motor apart, see if it's worth saving, if I can do anything with it. This, it's just metal. I'm sure I could fix that. But this is the part that I'm worried about. All right, took a bit of prying. I just used my file, my hand file, my fine one. I just cleaned that end up a little bit. I was able to pop that off, and then of course, I was able to feed the wires through. Now, I had to replace the wires anyway. You can see where the most has been chewing on this one. And this one here's not bad, but it's really hard. It means I got it apart. You know, I'll be able to get in there and solder those new ones on. Same gauge, but we're just going to be able to make them a little softer. But the shim packs doesn't look too bad inside. And the top has spun really easy. This is solid. It's something on the bottom end. The bottom bushing is going to be the issue. And I can't get it out. It's jammed in there, so might have to use a little tapping. I don't want to grab on this too much because I worry that I'm going to mar it up a little bit. But nah, we're gonna have to tap on this a little bit. The other end here, that's the end of the shaft on this side. You can it protrudes through just a hair. So I'm sure this is not the right way, but it's the way we're gonna do her. Oh, there it goes. That's all it required, actually, a little tapping. The brushes in there, I don't know. That's the biggest thing too, is how am I gonna keep the brushes apart? Put this back together. I don't know. I wonder if I can get the case off. It's dimpled. Punched there. 2, 3, 4. See, it's punched into the outside. I think is this the conductor? The wires wrap through. They create the magnet. That's where it's all at. This might not be a repairable item. But I'm gonna look at this for a minute. I'm not gonna give up. All right, I just pulled a little bit harder to get it out. Now, I got lucky, but the reason why I couldn't just pull it out, because there's a huge groove that the brushes that have worn in here. They wore right into the armature, and there's a good almost an 1/8 inch. So I was lucky that I didn't blow the brushes right apart. I am worried that the other side of these might be chipped up pretty bad now, though. So we're gonna check that. Not a lot come out, but that's what was holding that in. Just pulling against the brushes there, and it's pretty dirty down inside. I ran the file over the shaft again as well too. It was all kind of pitted up. Not really rusty. It must be stainless steel, but it was all pitted up on there. And I cleaned it out. But I think the slowness of the motor turn, combination of the brushes and just the bushings being dry and a little bit of crap that got in there. Now, looking at this, I don't think this is supposed to protrude through. I think I might have did that. I think when I hit on the end of that hub and nothing moved, this here, I measured it with my caliper here. The length of this is like a fraction of a millimeter away from the back of the pump or back of the motor. I think when I hit it, I blew it through. So I popped that hole through. So I don't think it's caused any real damage. I can see where the bushing stops, so I know where the shaft is supposed to be. But I think I'll have to put some JB Weld or something, maybe solder a piece of tin over the end of that, just to keep the water out. Though it might not even have to. There's a cup here. You can see this cup here. It's focused. Come on here. There we go. That cup right there, little brass cup. There's a little ring that slides on down in there, and I can see kind of the polished edge here. There's like a little bit of grease or something in there. So it's riding on it, so it doesn't go all the way through. That's kind of like I guess, what do you call it? A compression bearing. It's riding on there. It's got some kind of oil that's in there. So we'll have to lube that up as well. As for the wires, well, I cannot. There's no way I'm getting this apart. The one that's the most chewed one, I'm just going to have to do my best, because there was this much of it was inside the armature. When it went around, it was actually in under there like that, and then it came out the hole, and I made a loop. Well, I'm going to have to solder a new one on into this area here. I'll put a piece of shrink wrap over it, shrink tubing, and make it so it comes out, just so I can get rid of all these chewed wires, and then it'll run out like the other one. Now the other wire, again, it's stiff as well too. It was almost tight coming up out of there, just kind of like this. So there's not really a lot of room. I'll see if I have enough room here to solder another piece here as well too. And hopefully that'll be good for the wires. But I need to get these, I don't know, there. That's what I want to get out of there. I want to get these springs out. I don't know if you can, there you can see the little spring down there. I want to get them pulled out of there. Make sure everything's good and cleaned in there. I'll pull the brush up so I can try to get to the other side and see what that looks like. And then hopefully we can clean the bushing up a little bit down in there. Well, to my surprise, I don't know if we can see that. One second there. There we go. Look at that. I didn't even chip the bottom of that brush. I got real lucky. And the other one, yeah, the same thing. They're in good shape. So, got my springs out. They're actually fairly clean in there. We're going to make sure we clean up. They're quite long. That's them there. They forced the brushes out onto the armature. Keep good contact. So actually, yeah, they don't look too bad at all. I'm just going to see what I can get in here. Maybe on a little piece of dowel and some 3000 grit or 4000 grit. See if I can just give a nice little brush inside that bushing just to clean up a little bit. And I'll see if I can get something down in here, because like there is like a waxy paste on there, like some kind of oil that was on there before, but there's so much dust mixed with it, with the probably from the brushes, that it's kind of made like a little paste. It's probably what's causing it to be stiff. So get that cleaned up, maybe a little contact cleaner down there. See how she goes. So this is not, I can't really show this on camera because all fingers are in here going on at it, but these are my rods. These are little brass rods that I've always used when putting small motors together and stuff. So what you do is you get your spring loaded into the brush holder, and you get your brush lined up, and you have to use something to shove the brush down inside there. So I just use a dental pick on that end. And once you get it in, you can insert these little brass rods, and they hold the brush back. It's just in there, just past the lip. So now it's not protruding through. And then on most motors, the armature, they have little spaces that you can fit the rods between. So that's so you can slide it down in there, and then you can pull them out when you're done. And if you get everything lined up properly, making sure your armature's all the way down, when you pull the two rods out, the two brushes will snap together, and they'll be hooked right in where they need to be. So it looks like I got lots of room. Everything seems to be clean. I'm going to give it just one more little brush down, just because I was rubbing around in there with the pliers. Clean down one more time. I'll set it in there and see if we can get them to spread apart. Bear with me. We'll try to get those in one go, as long as they don't fall out. This one here, it's not really happy. There's almost no lip on the bottom for the other end of it to hook to. But we're just going to get that in line. There's a magnet here, of course, which is going to try to suck it in a bit. Keep the rods between there. There it goes. Now we pull these out. You hear the brush snap. Snap. There we are. Seems to move pretty good in there. Of course, it's hard to tell because it touches against the sides of the magnet, right? Because they move side to side. But that feels pretty good. I think they're seated in. Now, I did take a measurement to make sure that I am at the very end of the bushing back here, which I am. It's smooth now. And I can't go down anymore. It's riding on that graphite bearing. So, hopefully that's it. Now, let's pop the top on, get my wires going in the right spot, and we'll see where I can cut them off. Now also, you see this. This is the black soot that comes out of these things. Part from the armature, part from the brushes, but it's a mess working on these motors. But yeah, that is so nice compared to what it was. Let's hope we can get the rest of it together. All right, so back together, and there's a mark here to line it up, make sure it's in the right place. Unfortunately, when I'm sliding this together, where this goes over top, there's no room for me to really solder in there. So I'm gonna have to just put a jacket over this where it's chewed through, and then the rest I'll cut it shorter to put on new wire, and I'll attach this to the bottom of the back, I guess, I don't know what you call it, back sill, back dash, and just make sure they don't get moved around too much, because like I said, they're hard. No corrosion in them, but the wires are hard, and I'll start a new harness. But before I go too crazy, get it back together. She works. It's a loud little motor, but even though it sounds like that, there's no vibration in it. So, yes, it is what it is. And when I take the power off, it slowly winds down. So at least I know there's no restriction there. So I'm gonna put the bolts back in. Everything should be good and clean. And I'm gonna have to concentrate on the squirrel cage. That's beat the pieces. I'm gonna try to straighten that up. But unfortunately, this has taken me a lot longer tonight than I was hoping. And I promised Lek that we'd do a grocery night. So that's what it is. So I'm just gonna bolt this together. I'm gonna clean this up. You know, I might even throw a little bit of paint on there or something for the night, just to make it look all pretty. And tomorrow, hopefully we'll get the other parts fixed, blasted, and painted. There you go. Blower motor is complete. Smooth in there, doesn't touch a thing. That is awesome. Another part complete. Everything gets a second chance in Dushane's Corner. So, with that part finished, one thing I didn't really address when I was doing the whole thing, I should have did it at the same time. This is the valance that goes on, that you see on the dash. So this will be, which way is it? Yeah, it goes this way. And when the fan blows out, that is what you see on the back side of the dash. And of course, we have the blower part. And it is actually, it's cracked. It's got a break right in here. It's split open. I can see where it's supposed to be. It does have a metal ring to help retain the shape. So what I think I'll do is I'll get some clamps on that, and maybe just a little piece of fiberglass cloth. I'll rough this up, put a little bit of fiberglass cloth around it, not too thick, because I still gotta find some of this, put over it. But yeah, a little piece of fiberglass cloth that'll clean it up. I'll wash this up. It's packed full of a mouse nest. It ain't coming out at the moment, so gotta clean that up. But this is what I did in between mowing grass. Did about 2 hours, just over 2 hours on the big tractor, and I put another hour in on the whippersnipper. Still working perfect. And yeah, so I went back and forth, getting some odds and ends done. Again, my wires, they're a little stiff, and unfortunately, there's no room inside that case. There might be, but I don't really need to. This one will never move. This is my ground that just goes right back to the body. So I made it a little shorter, put a good connector on it, shrink the end. And this one, I put a jacket here on it. I put shrink wrap all across where the most is chewed. None of the wires were touched. And I put a bullet connector on here. And on the other side will be the other half that's shrunk as well too. It's got a little rubber jacket. And I made it short. And I'm going to put a little, clamp on the underside of that dash just so this wire doesn't move around too much. Not that it really would, but that's the only worry I have, is that the wires being stiff as they are, that they could crack over time. But I'll just put that up in there, put a little screw on it and a holder, and then the wire coming off will be the new part of the harness that I'm making. But that's it. Done. Another job, another part of the 64 ready to go. That sucked up that rubberized coating so good. You know what? I think I might actually put one more coat on it before I put this in permanently. But that turned out great. It is nice and tight against the top. Like I said, just a little edge down here. This pushes in no problem. I'll be able to seal that up real good. There's a double layer here. There's this hump, which is a hollow pocket inside the car. So I can put a screw in here without seeing it come through. I might put a couple little sheet metal screws just along the bottom there to help to hold that in a little better. Here it's not too bad. I want to stop that from happening. So in here, there's supports. There's a cross, and it's right there. So the same thing. I think I'll put a sheet metal screw, a flat head, like our nice rounded head one. I'll put one or two here on each side, just to stop that from happening. But just, you know, it's something small, but it's just another thing done on the 64. Now I'm still waiting on brake components, of course. Trying to figure that out. Not really having any luck back here. Actuator assemblies for the rear emergency brakes. I don't know. I don't need them for the brakes to work, but I need it to pass safety. That's the problem. I have to have a rear emergency brake. It was with the car original manufacturer's equipment, so I have to have it. Now this also, it had nothing except for one small muffler at the back, so I can run that. Seat belts were a lap belt on the driver's side. That's all I need. So that might get upgraded, but legally that's all I need because that's all there was at the time. But the emergency brake is an issue. And finding the actuator arms is an issue as well. It might be a used thing. They got to be in fairly good shape, but really they have to work a couple times, you know, to get the safety of the pass. How often do you run your emergency brake in your vehicles? Me, yeah, I know. I should do it a lot more than I do. Couldn't even tell you the last time I put the emergency brake on the old Dodge. I've been willing to bet that thing is seized solid because I don't think I've done it in years. The little Ford, yeah, that one I do use. Just because it's so light whenever I do brake work and stuff and lift it up, or not brake work, tire work and lift it up, I got to put the emergency brake on, or just even torquing to 100 pounds in the wheels will shove the thing right along. But hopefully this week I can sort something out or at least get something locked down. Sorry for the short videos lately. Doing what I can. Got some other stuff going on. But sure enough, I love you all. Thanks for all the comments. Catch you again tomorrow.